Good evening, my beautiful friends. I trust this session finds you doing well and blessed. Before we dive into today's topic of discussion, before we get down to business, I will kindly have to ask you, beautiful viewer, to subscribe to this channel. That way, the potential of reaching a wider audience is increased. Hopefully, dramatically so. But that, of course, will depend heavily on your subscription. And now, with that being said, today we are talking wholeness. And I know some of you might be thinking, wholeness is not really a subject worthy of discussion. Well, I'd beg to differ. Because wholeness is the beingness which we often unconsciously seek, yearn for, in material possessions, in relationships, and all the many distractions which we tend to give attention to. Essentially, the sense of lacking wholeness is merely a reflection, a manifestation of the fact that you are not content with your experience. The extension of what you are, because that is your experience. I guess in a sense you could say that you are your experience, because all that you experience is yourself. But now, we often lack contentment because of the nature of how we tend to lead ourselves as experience. We are too accustomed to operating, or to the reality of operating from a place of confinement, of conditioning, because that was imposed on us. We didn't really have much of a choice, because when we are born into a household which we basically don't consciously get to choose. Perhaps we do choose it due to some higher purpose. But as far as the individual experience is concerned, we are basically victims of the environment which we find ourselves in. And at that point, we are basically defenseless. We are at the mercy of others. And often that stretches long enough for it to have a serious impact on us, serious implications. Because by that time we have this identity formed, which is all tied to a single name which was given by a single couple, which come from a particular tribe or tribes, which relate to you uniquely, not because you are unique, but because of the household you are in, because of the conditioning which they've endured in their own life experiences. And so that's your unfortunate predicament. But of course, nothing is inherently bad. I mean, we all, in fact, have the capacity, the potential to, in a sense, turn coal into diamond. Because the generational curse which is imposed on us through the conditioning that we are forced to undergo has its own lessons, so to speak. We are meant to grow from such limitations, because within such limitations is found the answer to transcend rather beyond such limitations. But we are often too used to the identities, the personalities which we have formed within our own minds. And so we are living as mind. And that's not inherently a bad thing. Again, it's just that mind is not meant to be a person, you see, or rather a personality, because personality is only a person rooted in past reality, as I often define it. And so to transcend beyond that, you have to allow the mind to function the way it was intended, which is to experience reality fully. But we often don't get to experience ourselves as whole, purely because we are confined internally. We are constricted, we are limited to the contents of mind, to the psyches, to the conditioning, which defeats the entire purpose of experience, which is to experience one's self fully. But of course, we also inherit the potential to break generational curses. Again, within the contents of the curses, there is answers. Within the problems, there are solutions. And we must be willing to see and experience these solutions without any biased judgment. That's to say, we must allow ourselves to live beyond our comfort zone. This must become a norm, as opposed to living normally within one's comfort zone, within what's familiar. Because that way, we indirectly stifle progression, evolution, ultimately one's growth as experience. That's to say, we stay little as far as expansion of experience is concerned. And so wholeness is elusive, because the line between what's whole and what's incomplete, in a sense, is a very fine line, because the sense of incompleteness, which is a norm for most of us, is actually quite elusive. It's an illusion. It's not real, but because we believe it's real, we get to experience it as ourselves. So we experience ourselves as that limitation. But it's not real. You just have to be humble enough to let life guide you. And there's so much bliss in that. Although it often requires some form of sacrifice, given that you've already dug yourself so deep within the pit of gradual destruction, which is the conditioning that is passed on from generation to generation. The generational curse, which we've come to believe in, which we believe is a reality, more especially for the brown-skinned folk. That's keeping us from experiencing wholeness. Life is whole. Life is perfect. We are perfect. It's just that we are messing ourselves up, or we've been messed up. But of course, everything, especially when you reach a certain level of understanding of or mental comprehension, you have a choice, or you have more will, or more space to exercise this choice. The choice to go beyond the limitation that you grew up in, grew up as. And so, the key to wholeness is non-judgment. I repeat, the key to wholeness for the individual experience is non-judgment. Because life or experience, rather, or one's experience comes already judged in a sense, prejudged, divinely judged. Because although you operate within the physical domain as a finite mind, there's a higher mind which you are connected to, which sees the bigger picture, and so propels you towards a certain experience of yourself, which will add, or which will guide you, or which will cause you, rather, to learn certain lessons. Because behind every experience, there's a lesson. And so the purpose of every experience, of all experiences, is the lesson behind the experience. And more often than not, like I wanted to mention earlier on that because we've dug ourselves within the pit of destruction, we often find it painful growing out of it. Hence the sense of sacrifice, which comes about as a byproduct within one's experience. But all of this is necessary. All of this is divinely ordained for your greater good. And with that being said, looking at the time, I will have to conclude this session. I trust that you found it somewhat valuable. I trust that it will help you expand your perception. That's if you listen to it open-mindedly. I guarantee that if you listen, or if you listened rather, to it open-mindedly, then it will do something within your experience as experience. And if you need to listen to it again, do so. And if you would like to share it, be my guest. Love and light.